This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
Well, away we go. Budget 2024 well underway. Yesterday was the first big meeting, and just for a rundown, last night's meeting was the first of four, where we will pick apart dollars and cents to try to figure out how to lower our base rate, which right now is at 5.5%. Now, breaking news, it did go down last night, 0.02%. That works out to about $8 if you're, for every $1,000 that you pay right now. So congratulations. Try not to celebrate it. So the next meeting will be this Thursday, February 1st at 5 o'clock, and then Monday the 5th at 5 o'clock, and then Wednesday the 7th at 5 o'clock, and they'll get this ratified on February 12th, or will they? We haven't got into the nitty-gritty yet. Last night's presentations were mostly for boards and for funds that we have no control over. As Norm Gale put it, when it comes to the DSAB, their bill and their levy is calculated to be around $17 million, which is about $61,000 less than the amount in the proposed budget. It actually went down a little bit, but that's a bill from DSAB. We don't get to control that. It was funny that at one point during the presentation, which there wasn't one because they just send us a bill, that's just part of our responsibility. Councillor Gertuga questioned why everybody else has pretty presentations and they just sent a spreadsheet. The answer was pretty simple, because they don't have to. And away we went. So, DSAB was one of them. The Thunder Bay Police Service was the other. God bless Chief Fleury. He was spectacular last night. His presentation skills are second to none. He speaks from the heart. He's completely genuine. And when he comes to the table and says, yep, we're going up $2.3 million, you understand why. It was the best presentation of the night. $1 million of that $2.3 million increase, which, by the way, is 4.3% on police services, which also, by the way, we can't say no to, nor should we, or even question it. $1 million of that is for full-time equivalents from last year that get carried over to this year. There were 14 new hires. Whatever the police services asks for, we shouldn't be questioning it, not only because we can't, but because it's the police services. And what they do is an incredible amount of very important work, and we thank them all for their service, and we thank you, Chief Fleury, for your presentation last night. It was fantastic.
And can I also point out, I caught a bit of it, great presentation, and then I had texted you at one point, and I know this bears nothing on it, wonderful tie. Did you see that? Beautiful
he looked
yellow
fantastic.
tie. Looked spectacular. So nice.
It was a power tie.
It was a power tie, John. Yep.
One of the things that also came up last night that kind of will make people twitch a little bit was this whole outdoor rink reductions. Remember, we spent far too many meetings talking about this and where we're going to save money. The decrease of $73,000 was on the budget to the closure of 8 outdoor rinks. Then that gets flipped around because Oliver Road Recreation Association and Current River Recreation Association asked the city for funding for their community centers for $4,500 each. Well, the city says, sure. What are they doing with that $4,500? They're opening back up the rinks at Oliver Road Recreation Association, Kern River Recreation Association. So that money turned out to be a little bit of a wash. So 8 outdoor rinks closed, $73,000 in savings. Then we get into the interesting stuff, and this is the part that makes me think of Councillor Rebecca Johnson. God bless her and her service. I know she was watching last night. Her and I really should just get popcorn and watch this together because I can only imagine the conversations we would have. Last night, City Council received the motion that, $200,000 is getting added to the budget for 2 more full-time equivalents to city staff, representing $200,000. And you start to question, who are these people? Are they hired yet? That's a lot of money. What does that include? Et cetera, et cetera. This was one of those times last night where I'm reminded all of the time what the role of council is, and you should be reminded of this too. Our new city treasurer and the city manager should get awards for the amount of times they have to remind council that they've already approved something. This is one of those. We do what you tell us to do. We work at the wish of council. We put things through that you've already approved. This was one of them. But yet we had to spend a few minutes talking about it and explaining to them, no, you already approved this. So these are the kinds of things now that we're going to be reminded of for the next couple of meetings. Things like added expenses, added decreases in the budget that will be questioned by the same councillors who said yes to these motions last year. So keep this in mind going forward. When you see additions or reductions to the budget, a good chance was this was under council's direction. They decide these things. They say yes or no, and administration does the work. So administration did the work, and they came back with, under council's direction, nothing more than 5.5%. So the budget went down 0.02% last night to 5.48. We're just getting started. There's a lot of things that still have to come. Last night we covered things like the Waterfront District BIA and the Victoria Avenue District BIA in Victoriaville, a reduction in the Victoriaville expenses. That's fine too. All of those things pushed through last night because these are things that they've already said yes to or are actually saving money on. Now going forward, we get into the nitty gritty. When we start to look at the things that are coming in front of council, things like recreational services and all of those little pieces, and God forbid I even dare talk about tourism, that's coming up. We'll start to see where the additions are. But there are reductions. And we didn't talk about a lot of those last night. They didn't add up to a lot, but we did add $750,000 to the budget last night and found a way to lower it $750,000 to actually save some money. But it's only night one. There are 3 more to go. So, notable, 4.3% for police service, 4.5% for the library, 4.2% of that is a staff pay increases because of their union increases, etc., and benefits and all of those kinds of things. Easy passes. So now we get into the good stuff starting on Thursday night. Some things for honorable mention last night, and I heard you mention it last night or this morning. Nice to see former Councillor Aldo Roberto there. Except for the part where he got to the chair of a deputy there, and he really had nothing to say because they didn't need any questions answered. He was just representing the Victoria Avenue BIA. But then he took it upon himself to use that time to criticize council because the chairs in the gallery are pointing the wrong direction.
Hang tight. He didn't criticize council. It was a suggestion.
That wasn't the time for the suggestion, nor was it his place to talk about that. He was there to talk about Victoria Avenue BIA.
But that was dismissed.
So was he from the chair, but then took the time, ignoring the chair, and made sure that he points it out. Just so you guys know, the chairs are kind of pointed... Anyway,
hey, you know what?
That's the kind of stuff that, by the way, won't make it into the city podcast.
You know what? It was a little lighthearted toward that point, and I actually found that really nice.
Speaking of lighthearted, Councillor Pascalino last night, I don't care what you think about Lockstone. There was a I'm not making it up. These are the kinds of things that listen, I'm not being overly critical. I appreciate the service of every councillor. I appreciate the efforts they put in, especially at budget time. But last night we said it a couple of times in various text exchanges that I had with a number of people that there are people that are talking just for the sake of talking. And let's be reminded that there were a couple of people, I will let them remain nameless, that didn't say a word last night too, and actually didn't participate at all, except for raising their hand. But Councillor Pascalino wanted to let you know that, Lockstone is expensive, and I have Lockstone. Part two of that was, and I quote, "I'm a gearhead, so it's just what I do," when he was questioning the cost of a police car and a police officer showing up to the scene. I'm thinking that's worth about $100,000. What?
How do you put it?
What? Anyway, there were those kinds of points that were made last night that are just a complete waste of time. However, he got them out. He is a gearhead, by the way, and he knows that 180,000 kilometers on a police car is a lot. Councillor Bentz ruled him out of order and reminded Councillor Pascalino last night not to speak over the chair. He's the chair, and when I tell you to be quiet, be quiet. That was an interesting part. Also won't make it into the city podcast. Anyway, I also want to point out that Councillor Bentz is a remarkable chair. He does an exceptional job of managing the room and keeping things moving. There were several times where Councillor Bentz, the chair, had to say, can we please stick to the budget talk and not kind of meander around things? I like to call it pontificating. It's a fun word. It means you just say things for the sake of saying it because you have the ear of the people. Well, let's just stick to the budget. Good news, though, last night, the marathon budgets of the past are gone. We were done at 8:33 last night.
Yeah.
So, round 2 happens Thursday night, 5 o'clock. Grab your popcorn. I searched for it. I wonder what the meal will be served to counselors at 5 o'clock.
You have that inside information.
I didn't. You know what?
Find
I
out.
forgot to text my quote-unquote sources last night to ask what was for dinner. And I just want to say publicly, and I've said this publicly before, every time I ask Councillor Folds what was for dinner, he always answers with Brussels sprouts, which I know is not the case. But that's his answer, and it makes it fun.
You know what I think a nice pre-budget meal is? A nice BLT with fries.
Right. Let me ask you this, Danny.
Yeah.
Did you get a free meal on your way into work this morning?
No, I didn't.
Have I ever
No.
bought you breakfast before your morning show?
No, but you have brought me coffee when I've forgotten about
Sure.
my But thank you for that. But-
Councillors can get a free coffee. Let me see the budget line of how much the meals cost. And that's the roundup for today. More coming up on Friday morning. We'll get into the good stuff. I see tourism in my future. So we'll see what happens next.
All right, John, as always, thank you so much. A special edition of the City Council Roundup, the budget edition. And again, another reminder, as John said, there is a budget meeting tomorrow night starting at 5. 8:20, -6 now at the corner of Park and Water. You're going to break out the patio furniture. A high is 6 today.
Oh, I'm not breaking out the patio furniture, but you're turning this up, and I am going to start to dance.
Let's do it. Commodores on the Bay.